Is it better? Is it quieter? Is it different?
It sounds better to me once you had the music.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
just listen to the music, right? So, okay, cool. So today,
Everybody knows something, I
yeah,
guess.
yeah, everybody knows. Dave Solomon's like, everyone knows when it's just 2 words that you have to write for a song. How could it be that good? I'm like, hey, you watch
Uh,
it, Dave. That's Superman that you're messing with right there. So, anyways, today, kind of our focus that we wanted to go through is to go through the Microsoft Ignite event. I know that there's a quick summary that's out there on YouTube that's 6 minutes, but I think it's interesting to give a perspective from kind of what we look at it with, because obviously what Adam had mentioned is that there's a lot of change that's happening right now. A lot of change in terms of ERP, CRM. That's what you as a customer potentially call it as. But we are looking at as just tools within an application business process framework now to really drive how you implement systems inside of your business. So today what we want to do is we wanted to go through that Microsoft Ignite event, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip over to our presentation mode inside of here. And basically what we want to do, I'm going to flip between us speaking here as we have content that we want to go through with it, and then also the Ignite event. And we did this actually for the Inspire event too, as one of the internal tests that we were doing when we were experimenting with streaming as a way to kind of convey that information. But the intent here is to kind of go through and then show just different areas that are obviously going to have an influence on your business. And one thing that we're noticing, obviously, is that we're going beyond just ERP, right? So it's not just finance and supply chain management as they call it now. It's Business Central. It's part of the story. It's Power Platform. It's CE, right, guys? I mean, this
yeah.
is becoming, I would say, the strategic advantage that Microsoft has here for solutions in business systems is that stack concept is become even more pronounced than it was even in the 90s, 2000s, and even the 2010 era. I mean, we're getting
Yep.
now into the 2020 era with this, right?
Yeah, and I think it's particularly for smaller NAB BC users to be able to actually leverage this technology from a cost perspective is amazing to me. I think this technology was really off limits, prohibitive because of cost a few years ago, and that's just not the case anymore.
Yeah, it's just much easier to deal with, right? So let's go ahead and kick it off. Instead of having us talk about the entire introduction, we've got limited time. We'll probably go a little bit later, and we may have other people that have to drop off. Thank you, Michelle, for subscribing and following. That's awesome. We love to have you here. So let's go ahead and go through it. So the very first thing I want to go through is just kind of go, I've got these kind of earmarked, obviously, for the sake of time to go through this. And the very beginning here is kind of the introduction video that Satya introduces as part of this. And we're going to talk about that tech intensity. It's a big concept right now within Microsoft that they're pushing. But I think that this entire video kind of frames then what we call the core note. For those of you that don't know what a core note is, it's a keynote. It's just, they used to do a keynote, right? And then you had little subject matter keynotes that you would do as well. The core note, the concept behind it is it's a major theme around the entire conference, around Ignite, for example. And Ignite is actually a conference that's really focused around the technical audience, isn't it, Adam and Marcus? Isn't that the intent of what Ignite was, or is it more business system specific, or is it general? What is for the audience? What is the concept here with this?
The way that I've always thought about Ignite is definitely geared toward more of the technical crowd, and there are a number of Microsoft Business Application or technology conferences through the year. We're really starting to kick back up the what used to be Convergence or the remnants thereof with the Microsoft Biz Apps, like the general Business Application conference. But you've got you've got that, you've got Ignite, you've got Focus, from the communities, and there are a number of them. Ignite is definitely more technical focused, but not just in terms of software development, but also hardware and infrastructure, and pulling all of the technical components into focus. No pun intended, or no wires crossed intended there, but it's a more technical coverage, and you'll see that in a lot of the announcements that we jump into. I mean, it really kicks off with a bang with respect to the infrastructure.
And chat, as you have questions about this content, just stop us too. Like I said, we love to be interactive with this. So with that though, I want to kick this off. Hopefully the audio is okay. Chat, just let me know what's going on. Kicks off with a bang. Ignite. It's a bomb. Are you ready? Let's do this.
How do we empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more?
It starts with one.
One employee.
One developer.
One organization.
From one employee to a team collaborating with another team.
From one organization to their customers, to their customers' customers.
Helping local communities, creating jobs,
Increasing productivity for the global economy.
Our society.
Our world.
That's the impact.
That's the impact.
that's the impact each of us can have.
That's our opportunity.
100,000 plus employees.
75 million organizations.
7 billion people on the planet.
100 to 75 to 7.
To make every small business more productive.
To make every large business more competitive.
To make nonprofits more effective.
To make government institutions more responsive.
To expand access to education.
To improve healthcare outcomes. And to amplify human ingenuity.
When we empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more, we empower the world.
Okay. How many Microsoft products did you see in that?
I think front and center is like 0.
See, that's the beautiful thing about it. Like, you watch that video, Surface Book was in there. They had Power BI that was in the video. They had, what was the other thing? They had some of the visualization, like the holographic IoT-based stuff that was inside of there. I mean, if you look at it, what's interesting about it, and the reason I asked was that you don't even notice it, right? In a lot of ways, it's part of the ingrained process that's inside of there. I don't know if you guys noticed that or not. Did you see anything at all in terms of Microsoft?
I did not.
You did not. Okay, interesting. Well, let's keep going here because Satya is going to go ahead and start talking about the introduction and tech intensity, and let's kind of go through that concept as well.
Good morning. It's great to be back in Orlando with all of you. We have over 30,000 people from all corners of the world here, and it's great to be celebrating what you all do. I first wanted to start by saying a big thank you. A big thank you for being that community that builds tech capability in every organization in the world. Because what you do and your push, your feedback to us is so important. And today and throughout this week, we're going to celebrate that tech capability and that tech intensity. In fact, my entire keynote is going to be about tech intensity. Now, as I was coming down, someone told me that there is this new exhibit at the Universal Studios that perhaps best typifies what tech intensity is all about. A team came together in less than 110 days. They built this pretty amazing exhibit, and I said, wow, to really get into the mood for this morning's keynote, I should go see it. So let's roll the video to show you what happened.
Hello? I need your help. There's a young girl trapped inside this portal,
I don't watch Stranger
and you
Things.
have to get her out.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Press the red button on the walkie-talkie and tell me your name.
Satya.
Satya, it's me, Jessica. You can totally help me. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did.
That was a Demogorgon. You gotta get me out of here. Quick, get its attention.
Woo!
It looks like me when I wake up.
Now's your chance to use your superpowers. Hold up both hands and kill it.
That's cool.
You did it! That was awesome. Satya, you saved my life.
Yeah, that's me saving my.
Okay, that was kind of interesting. So, couple questions I have on that to start off here. So, you know, tech intensity, right? It's about taking technology and very quickly applying it in many different ways with many different types of technologies, right? So, you know, looking at that video, obviously you've got a display, you've got some type of capture that is, you know, as he's putting his hand out and pushing against something, it causes a reaction. It looks like there's some neural, was it text-to-speech, NTTS, I think they call it, where he put it did a pretty good job with his name, but it was, you know, it's still getting there, right, type of a thing. Is there anything else that was in that was kind of interesting for you guys? That's just it's just unique just to see this type of perspective with things now.
For me, it was the consolidation of all. You know, we talked about, you know, it might be a handhold, but you know, the animation and the visuals of what you're getting on that screen, you're getting that you know, that natural language analysis in real time. Like you said, they do a pretty good job with it. And then also I'm teasing the popping of the hood here in a second, but the first thing I thought of in seeing that, just from my experiences at home, were, is that a Kinect?
Exactly.
Is this an Xbox backend? But you know, like it's cool. You know, like we talked about that intro and like the initial reactions that you get. What I get out of this one are there's so much cool tech that is being scaled to what we do. You know, and all of this happens in what, 25 seconds. Exactly. So you know, there's so much to unpack from this 25-second interaction with the CEO of Microsoft. And it just ends up distilling into this fun interaction. It's obviously branded, and there's a branding purpose to it, but it's really cool to see that and think about, you know, what really goes into this 25-second experience.
Yeah, and Microsoft has been really big on Stranger Things lately. I mean, part of the conferences, they had, you know, in what is it, the DTA, they had that same theme around it. So there's obviously a partnership that's there as well. But like you're saying, I mean, they're talking about 110 days to do that. And I mean, obviously that includes production, that includes the technology for the interaction, so to speak, but also then the room, the layout with it. I mean, that is pretty quick for something that's going to be, for example, at a theme park that hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions of people, are going to be interacting with, right?
Yeah, I think that was the most striking thing to me, was the 110 days. Knowing what has to go into to get that sort of production quality out of it is amazing.
So kind of the other areas that Satya goes through, so the tech intensity, obviously he's talking through that for adoption and trust, and we're going to talk a little bit about that as well today. But one of the key things that was brought up was kind of that storage concept as well that we're looking at in the future here. And I know that he talks about that in a little bit of detail in terms of, you know, what is the amount of data that we're looking at having to store and interact with as part of this transition, right? Because it's becoming more around everything that Microsoft does. It's very data centric, and I think that's a big differentiator. Meaning, it used to be that we sell applications, right? We sell front ends that are, like Adam, you said it, monolithic, right? That we interact with. Now we're building data-centric type products where the data is really the driver of the resource that you interact with, and then the application layer is just for the ease of use to be able to access that data layer, right? I think it's a different concept than before, in my mind, that we interact with. And what I'm trying to find here just really quickly is that tech intensity aspect. He's going to go through the Azure perspective. I think that it makes sense for us to kind of watch in Azure and the platform here. And that's one thing I do want to mention. So all of these, you know, when we start talking about solutions that we interact with, I'm looking at all of these. I mean, I look at Azure for compute, for taking those VMs and dev machines, for example. I'm looking at Power Platform to create applications that integrate with the common data service. I'm using developer tools like DevOps. I'm using Dynamics 365, obviously, because that's our core. But then also we use Teams and things of that nature for Microsoft 365 to be collaborative with it. And Brad, I actually forgot. You are absolutely right. Plants vs. Zombies. That would be a great Universal Studio ride or interaction. But that's kind of the key here, right? Is that there's more to it than what we have currently. And even on calls with other people, what I'm noticing is that they're a little bit behind. I mean, it feels like they're a little bit behind on that strategy, meaning, oh, I'm going to stay inside of CE, or I'm going to stay inside of BC because that's my wheelhouse, where there's all these components now that are just so much more powerful, right?
Yeah. Well, I think you noticed that in the visuals that they're going to use later. I know that the last video we looked at had data in the center too, but it seems to be more prominent in this presentation, where data is the center, and they've got several graphics that show the other systems outside of that, but data continues to be in the middle.
So let's look at what they say about Azure here.
And start building up from there. In fact, I want to have some fun with numbers, just to motivate each of the layers of the tech stack. When you look at these two numbers, 50 billion devices by 2030 and 175 zettabytes of data by 2030.
Okay, hold on. 175 zettabytes.
Is that a Z?
That's a Z. That's a Z. So that is, so how does it go? That's one zettabyte, if I recall correctly, is 1 million terabytes. I think that's correct.
I'll believe you.
It's 1 to the 23rd,
yeah, I'm gonna have to believe you
basically.
Too.
Yeah. So you think about that for a second. I mean, by 2025, that's the amount of data storage requirement that's going to be out there. I mean, I've got my NAS solution at home, and I felt really happy that I've got a 50 terabyte storage solution here. But this just puts it to shame, right? And obviously, it's going to be critical here moving forward.
2025.
Yeah.
From around 40 today.
What's up, Adam?
Well, and it speaks to what we're going to get into down the line here, which is, we're going to hear that word democratization. So, getting the net cast wider and wider for a lot of people to start building and start creating and start consuming. So it just speaks to that exponential curve that you'd see on a graph of where we're at and where we're going.
Absolutely.
That's what's motivating us. That's what is motivating the need for us to build Azure as this distributed computing fabric, as the world's computer. We have over 54 data center regions, more regions than in.
That's interesting.
Also to ensure that it has the right certifications.
Hey guys, it's just like a demo.
Supporting all of the digital sovereignty
Can go wrong, will go
all
wrong.
over the world. It's also open. Both Windows and Linux, Java and .NET, Kubernetes, Redshift, VMware, Oracle, SQL Server, Postgres. So every layer of the stack, there is openness.
And I want to point that out, and that's a culture shift I think that a lot of us are starting to experience with this. It's not once you centralize around the data, the branding up front, Salesforce versus Oracle versus SAP, that message really changes, right? I mean, I personally believe, that Dynamics, for example, gives a better value for the integration into this tool set of data that we're looking at. And I think you could always argue that Microsoft is always going to have products that are more specific to Microsoft-based offerings, right? Because they have the dev teams that can basically walk over and talk to each other if they need to within a situation. Whereas when you start looking at external solutions, they'll still have that integration because businesses want it, but it's not as tightly coupled, basically, as I'd look at with it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But I mean, Marcus, you've run into it, right, with BC demonstrations. And I mean, Adam, when we were out on site too, we found that another customer was using Salesforce, and we're talking about the data vision, and that seemed to really resonate with them.
I still am acclimating over the past few years in saying, hey, Salesforce is okay. That's just fine. There's a piece of me that is, I've been living and breathing this specific technology for so long, and it was in that monolithic mindset. And now we have this mind shift to, this is more of a digital transformation step. This is to get you where you need to be, resting on the common data model and Power Platform and whatnot. Use NetSuite, use Salesforce, use Dynamics 365. That is fine. We're here to assist in what that transformation ought to look like and taking the appropriate steps to integrate this model here. And then we can scale up, down, sideways, and use different applications as we need to based on your business need. So that openness, as Satya talks about, it really, I still fully have to come to terms with that. But how we speak about it and what we do with it is transforming at such a rapid pace in this open fashion. It's really exciting.
Absolutely, absolutely.
This global footprint, sustainability is of paramount importance to us. In fact, this summer we launched a new data center design that is zero waste and 100% renewable energy. It's so
This is interesting to me.
This is going to roll out in
This is
Sweden,
huge.
and it's going to spread throughout every region of Azure. And so we're really ensuring that the power utilization efficiency of every workload as it moves from traditional data centers to the cloud is something that's contributing to the sustainability.
And I think, honestly, people just have no idea on how much compute. So an example, I pulled up an article, and I want to share this just with everyone really quickly here. So here's the statement that MIT just did recently. This is a fairly current article as well. So training a single, so one AI model can emit as much carbon as 5 cars in their lifetime, meaning the lifetime of a vehicle, the carbon emissions, the electrical requirement from a data center to create or train this particular model produces, like I said, 5 full cars worth of carbon. I mean, if you think about it in the future here, we train models now all the time, right? Inside of Power Platform, it's like second nature that we upload 18 images and it goes through that training algorithm. I'm not going to say that's probably not it probably doesn't use as much carbon with it, but it's a pretty significant requirement, right? That's inside of there.
Yep. Yeah, I think Microsoft moving to this zero emissions is a significant change.
Yep. And I know that they were experimenting like with data centers in the water. I don't know if you guys have seen that as well, where they actually take them and cool them inside of the water.
That freaks me out.
Yeah.
That just like again,
right?
mind shift. Like, yeah, let's do exactly what we've been told not to do forever, and put all of this compute power in this whole data center, and just put it under the sea level. Let's do that. And in fact, not just under the sea level, under the sea, and let's see how that goes. But the results are pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a great article on Bill Gates' investment in a solar testing company. Just actually came out last week. The money that they're putting in to experiment with the ability to generate solar power in a whole new way.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I mean, for businesses as well, it may not impact you immediately at this point, but eventually, obviously, there's going to be more of that mentality of trying to reduce that carbon footprint perspective with it. I guess it was just refreshing to see that somebody's actually saying they're trying to do something about it. It doesn't have to be all the way, to the extreme with it, but it's a step actually in the right direction. And as, people like us, we know that these machine learning algorithms and artificial intelligence concepts consume a lot of power. We need to start thinking a little bit differently on how we deliver that, and so it's really cool to see that. So that kind of brings just at the high level of tech intensity, the introduction that we went through with it as well, and then understanding the power requirements that are out there, and then the storage requirements that are there. And so, sharks with lasers for sure as well. Chat, I love it. So the next aspect here that I wanted to kind of talk about is this Microsoft Edge concept that they have. And we're not going to talk about the Edge in a lot of detail. It's more about allowing you to have hardware that can kind of coexist with your local on-premise infrastructure to provide that edge capability or that communication to Azure. But they did announce something here that I thought was pretty major, and that is at, if I can find it just really quickly here, it was called Azure Arc. And I don't know if you guys have heard about this, but that, I'm sorry, I got all giddy in my head with this because I'm just like, wait a second. This is a cool concept that I think our customers may want to consider, especially enterprise-based customers, because there are some that do want to continue to use their own data centers, right? Or they want to put that investment into a data center to manage that. And this was just a concept where finally I'm just like, well, this makes sense. So let's share this first and then talk about it after we see the video here.
Computing. I'm really thrilled to announce Azure Arc. Azure Arc really marks the beginning of this new era of hybrid computing, where there is a control plane built for multi-cloud, multi-edge. And not only that, but we for the first time support managed data services to be anywhere your compute is. So again, managed data services that are multi-cloud, multi-edge. We also have 2 open source projects that allow you to build these cloud-native distributed applications.
Use so many so many TLAs, so many. It's like, what does that mean?
Enterprise application development.
We'll explain
and
it.
Deployment model. And to show you all this, I wanted to throw it out to Aaron on the show floor. Take it away, Aaron.
Given it's a demo, but it's so cool.
Thank you, Satya.
Absolutely.
It's
I'm
so
excited
cool.
to show you how we've fundamentally redefined hybrid. So you can bring Azure innovation to your data center virtually anywhere.
Look at how nervous her
Imagine
hand is.
I'm responsible for IT
I'd be
operations
shaking
at
like crazy up there, be like,
Here's my IT dashboard.
I wouldn't be any better.
Now, I'm responsible for managing a heterogeneous environment with increasing system sprawl and data silos.
Put Rob up
and it's
there.
my responsibility to deliver the agility the business demands while ensuring the compliance and security of the entire estate. With Azure Arc, I can manage all of my resources seamlessly from the Azure portal, extending management capabilities, Azure management capabilities, to my data center. Now, through a few simple steps, I can connect my data center to Azure. We ran through the steps moments ago on this HP Superdome Flex here on stage. And momentarily, you'll see my Orlando data
before
center
anything, right?
show
They
up
just
as
did it.
an Azure location. There it is. Now, with Azure Arc, I can extend Azure Data Services to my data center. My bank is rolling out a new risk management application. Let's see how Azure Arc fundamentally changes the game. So within the Azure Marketplace, you can see preview container instances of the Azure SQL DB and Azure Database for PostgreSQL. My risk management application runs on Azure SQL DB, so I'm going to select that. I'm going to choose to deploy it to that Orlando data center I just created, and click Create. Now, what we're deploying is the same evergreen version of SQL available only in Azure. Typically, deploying a DB into a VM on premises is a lengthy process that can take hours. But as you can see, in a matter of seconds, I was able to install Azure SQL DB to my data center.
So let's stop here, right? So for everyone that doesn't understand what just happened there, basically you own your own data center, right? And your data center has a bunch of different machines that are there that are edge connected, we'll say, and that's part of that edge concept that they have. So there's hardware that you can install that helps manage this. What they just did is they went to the Azure portal and they clicked on a Docker image, like a container, probably Kubros is what they were using with it, clicked on it, said deploy that to my local data center, not to Azure, but to their data center, their machines that they own, so that they're not paying for, you know, a new VM or anything else like that, and it deployed that to their on-premise environment. Did I understand that correctly, Adam and Mark?
Yeah, I think that's what happened. Yep.
I mean, wow.
I mean, like I said before, it's an Ignite demo, so it's going to look flashy and be snappy, and everything is pretty instantaneous. But you know, just the sheer concept that I can go and you know, in a point-and-click fashion through a controlled management portal and go deploy a PostgreSQL database or you know, any like a standard SQL database into a stack, a physical stack that I have just living somewhere that I synced up to Arc, you know, in that edge connectivity and that management suite. That's pretty amazing, and that's downplaying what we just saw.
Yeah, and even here, like they're showing, if I just take us off of here, just time interest-wise, we're trying to cover the highlights here, obviously, but it sounds like there's data security too, so the advanced threat protection that's inside of Azure can also be leveraged with this Microsoft Azure Arc. And then the other aspect of it too was the analytics. So they showed, for example, an actual database that was deployed. Now, I think that this front end right here is, you know, custom, basically, is what we would say with it. They've created a front end that's streaming the information through a web service or through a call with it. But what she did in the demonstration is she actually went and then scaled out the number of worker nodes, and you can see here that basically it addressed the CPU issue that they were having, and this is all local, so this is not in Azure. And they also then highlighted the capability of being able to take Arc resources and bring them into Azure as well, right? I mean, so it's not just you're in your local data center. Maybe you finally get to capacity and you start needing to use Azure with it. They look at the movement with that as well, which I thought was just pretty amazing. Yeah, it is pretty fantastic.
So who would use this? I mean,
So
what organization would use this? What would they use it for?
So an organization, so typically the cost of Azure, we monitor it very diligently. Kevin, our IT manager, is always sending me emails on consumption usage for VMs, or compute as they call it. And if you think about it, those VMs, I mean, they're not cheap. They're beautiful because what happens is that they can scale, right? But the point of Azure is using scalability to downscale and upscale as needed. So if you have dedicated hardware that you need, that you're not scaling, for example, the price of that VM, you could buy a server potentially that has the same configuration in terms of physical hardware qualities for a pretty cheaper price. I mean, we're talking, you know, a server for $10,000. I mean, my run rate on my I think it's a D12 or maybe it's a D14. I mean, it's around $1,900 a month at peak, but then when I scale it down, it goes down to $300 basically. So if you have organizations that aren't managing their Azure environments, a lot of them feel that the price of Azure is more expensive. Realistically, it's not, but at the same point, because they're not managing it and they're using it in a classical way of, hey, I've got a server just sitting here, the price on Azure is more expensive. Now, there are organizations out there that have large data centers that provide additional capacity then for customers or even for their internal environment that they may want to use, because the price of that hardware, they've already invested into that. They don't want to sell that and then reinvest, so they want to use that capability, but they also want Azure. And so they want to use Azure and they want to centralize the management of all their systems. But if you have a data center and then you have Azure, you've got two separate systems that you basically got to manage, right? And that just becomes tough to manage.
Yeah, I think the biggest impact here, Scott, you hit it just a second ago, is, hey, I want to be able to manage manageability and accessibility of all this stuff, through we talked about the fact that this is probably a custom UI, so the flash of everything probably will get lost on somebody if they just jump in and start doing. However, just that concept of having everything orchestrated in a single portal or in a single access point, I mean, the efficiency in that concept alone is pretty insane. You look at enterprise database architects or infrastructure architects. That's really the target audience that's probably going to ooh and ah at this, especially when you consider hybrid models for on-prem as well as Azure-based or other cloud service-based data storage and access and scaling and performance. So that it can do even what we're witnessing in the simple demo, flashy demo, whatever, this is awesome.
Yep, absolutely. And Rad, you're absolutely right. I mean, start mixing this. Run on-prem because you have your current hardware, but holiday season you have a huge spike or demand requirement that occurs with it. Being able to transition this in the future, I mean, it's going to be a differentiator. And if you think about it, from Microsoft's perspective, it's win-win. They get people to start using more Azure capabilities. They help manage their data and provide a beautiful service on top of that. They'll probably have some type of fee that's related to it as well. But then as you want to increase your Azure consumption, you can do that as part of that Arc concept. So it's really bringing that what we call dark to cloud concept really into here. So other aspects here then, let's go ahead and jump into the Azure
Computing
AI,
is
because
going.
AI is huge.
I want to start with autonomous systems. When we think about autonomous systems, the first place we go to is autonomous cars. But in fact, wherever there is a control loop today, you can think about AI-driven autonomy. In fact, that's our goal with autonomous systems. Across industries, to build out, whether it's industrial applications, whether it's energy, whether it's robotics, how do we create that autonomy? And it's a couple of key elements. First is to really push the boundaries of reinforcement learning so that you can build an AI engine that's capable of driving autonomy. But one of the things that's important for us is to take engineers who today build these control systems and turn them into AI engineers by really helping them teach machines. So we have a new paradigm called machine teaching, where the engineers are teaching this AI engine by putting constraints, even giving it safety bounds, so that you can now have autonomous systems that are driven by engineers' domain knowledge. Of course, you have a simulation environment where you generate all of the synthetic data and these machine teaching labels in order to be able to train these models and then ultimately to be able to pick the right model to drive the autonomy. Recently, DARPA had a challenge, a subterranean challenge, and Carnegie Mellon University along with Oregon State were the ones who won.
Okay, chat. What's DARPA stand for?
This championship using the Azure Autonomous Systems. And it was pretty fascinating. There was a mine in Pennsylvania where you had to have this autonomous system go find objects. In fact, they won because they found 2 times the number of objects compared to their competition. And they were able to find objects within 20-centimeter distance of where they were located, right? Completely autonomously. And it's fantastic to see that type of progress. And what we're very, very excited about is to see, first of all, even partnerships we have with MathWorks, where they're bringing simulation engine to Azure to, in fact, enable more of this simulation-driven autonomy, as well as really the application across many, many different industries.
Awesome.
And I wanted to give you a feel
Bronx,
by
thank
rolling
ya.
a video of some of the use cases. Let's roll the video.
Delta is a 100-year-old company, but we still bring magic to every customer through innovation. We are #1 in bags, but we want to be better.
I have not lost
And
my
we are
bags
using
lately in
autonomous
Delta.
systems to get there.
I have not either.
It's a good thing.
Same.
Imagine you're designing a next-generation wind turbine. They're huge. With the power of autonomous systems, you can build smarter wind turbines that produce cleaner energy more efficiently.
These drones are making aviation more efficient by inspecting airport runways faster, cheaper, and better.
A lot of cognitive services in this video.
Construction companies face critical labor shortages. We're working on a fleet of machines that are helping build solar farms.
These robots are helping people get everything set up. That is a very large collaborative effort.
Microsoft has a history of ethics and thinking about how technology impacts us on the human side.
These robots can be used in just about any scenario where it's dangerous or infeasible to send humans in.
It's very important to have a rich simulation and modeling environment in order to model scenarios.
To make drones fly safely, we're working with Microsoft AirSim in the simulation environment and then comparing them against real-world results.
This is going to create an FAA regulatory world for the 21st century.
The opportunity is to make all of this easy to use, to quickly build the models so they can simulate on a massive scale without being computer scientists.
It now feels like we're hitting the real world.
It's an interesting video, isn't it? In terms of content that's there for, machine learning and, the concepts that we're involved with all the time. I mean, we have models for demand planning. We've got it for CE, for, what is it, the... Adam, if you can help me here, the one with the text analysis that occurs. Sentiment analysis, right?
The sentiment analysis through full text API, or the full text analysis API that we have available now.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
like BC, it's late payment prediction, right, that they have with
Yep.
it, or customer payment prediction. The
Yep,
one thing I
cash flow too.
did want to highlight, so DARPA sent me this video as well, getting to the machine learning capabilities that they're working on. This is the top secret portion of this that's coming here, so we've got to be careful, just so you guys
I was
know.
just gonna say there's machine teaching in the stack now, so let's be very careful.
Yes, yes. So we have to be careful with this. We have to start thinking about this in some ways.
That one was declassified, huh?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. They actually,
That's why if you saw in the stream when I heard machine teaching, I went, no. I mean, obviously this is a very exciting development, but any sci-fi geek can draw the parallel between what we're seeing in Azure, cognitive capabilities and AI building and R script and modeling and everything, and Terminators. So
absolutely. Once he started saying that, I was like, I have to have that video ready for just the Terminator walking around, because I mean, yeah, and. Facebook, yes, I could see it being a direct descendant with that too. Yeah, Skynet, right? I mean, what they talk about then in the Azure perspective here is just more of being able now to train your models using that compute capability. And if you're not using Azure ML, you should be considering it at this point. It is a very powerful tool. It's built into the Power Platform now as well in terms of doing some of the cognitive services such as image recognition. They've got document recognition that they work with as well on it. And they also have a speech capability, if I remember correctly. That's part of it as well. I don't know if that's the NTTS, the neural text-to-speech, or if that's just speech recognition itself. But obviously they're looking at expanding upon that, and so that's a feature that we use pretty heavily, especially in demonstrations. Like even today, I'm going to be going through the demand planning capabilities that uses the Azure ML functionality for a software demonstration to the user group, which should be kind of fun today. So I know we're getting limited in time here. Let's cover a couple of the other areas as well. That were in this. So there's one other one that they had mentioned called Project Silica that I just wanted to highlight here. So what they did here is that they talked about, Warner Brothers, and they have, Superman, or that's why I had the song playing initially here, is that Superman, or, any type of movie that they have is all in this digital format, right? And they're worried about the storage and resiliency of that data in the future. And so what Microsoft has been working on is a holographic storage capability, which is where they can basically etch data into glass. And that's a very simplified explanation of what it is. But they highlight it as that's the next new storage medium that they're looking at. And one thing I talked to Marcus about beforehand is like, that's great. I mean, here's another article that we had that was made in 2012 that talked about holographic storage. So that one might be, maybe they've had a breakthrough. I don't know. He didn't really talk about it in a lot of detail with it. But that's going to be something that people are going to probably talk about a little bit here. Obviously, cost-wise, I don't know. I think that, with classical spindle disks right now for data centers and data storage, you can't beat that versus then also solid-state disks. And the real reason why holographic storage really didn't take off is because the writing of the data is super slow. And we're talking kilobytes per second, so maybe they've extended that a little bit, but it
they didn't specify really any changes though, did he?
No, he didn't.
Yeah.
No, just said that's our new next thing. They talked about quantum capabilities as well, and what I want to do today is I want to at least get to two main areas that we commonly are focused on. So let's go through the Power Platform content that they had, just to kind of see that. So let's start it at 440605. Make sure I'm on that right one. Let's go ahead and...
I brought my favorite Power Ranger today because Power Platform is exciting.
Getting involved in a very deep way. In fact, it's motivated by this fact. We are going to have 500 million applications that are going to get created new by 2023. That's, just to kind of put it in perspective, more than all the applications that were created in the last 40 years. And so that means we need to
the app revolution, right?
citizen
that we keep talking about.
developers with tools that are low-code,
Back to the
no-code
zettabytes.
tools so that they can build out these applications. And that's what Power Platform is all about. In fact, there are already 2.5 million citizen developers using Power Platform. And it's great to see.
I'm sorry. I know some developers are just sitting there being like, you're really going to have people, regular people, develop applications? Yeah, like, I'm sorry. I paused even because I'm just like, okay, if I were a CIO or CTO and I'm looking at the logistics now of ensuring exactly like the strategy around it, right? I mean, that is huge. So, I mean, obviously I've got lots of thoughts on it, and Adam, you do too, and Marcus, you do as well, but it's just, you guys should be thinking about this, because what Microsoft is trying to do is they're trying to, what is it, democratize this capability, right? So let's keep watching here.
See this community, and you know, one of the things that inspires me is to listen to their stories. That feeling of empowerment, of making a difference, building that digital capability in an organization, perhaps most truly comes through from this community. Let's roll the video to hear from them.
I don't know if we need to see this. This is them talking about how awesome the Power Platform is.
Awesome to hear those voices, because I think that what this community is doing is perhaps going to build the most digital capability and help democratize
So basically, there's a community around Power Platform.
And
if you want to get more
really
info, a lot of people are very supportive of it.
Big step forward in terms of the tools that will be at the disposal of all the people who use Power Platform. Today, I'm really pleased to announce 2 new members of the Power family, Power Automate and Power Virtual Agents.
Adam is clapping in the background here.
Power Automate brings full robotic process automation to the Power Platform, along with by the power of Grayskull.
Okay, hopefully somebody got that reference.
Both of these, let me throw it out to the show floor to Charles.
We definitely heard it.
Show you Power Automate as well as Virtual Agents.
All right, let's see the Power Platform. I won't interrupt this. This is pretty cool.
Thank you, Satya. For over 40 years, TrueGreen has helped homeowners create beautiful and healthy lawns. And one of the most important ways they engage their customers is with the TrueGreen website. And in the past, if a customer wanted to schedule an appointment for a TrueGreen agent to come out to their home, they'd have to call a 1-800 number during business hours, very lengthy, painful process. However, with Power Virtual Agents, TrueGreen has been able to completely transform how they engage their customers. Their customers can now just walk up and report the actual issue that they're facing, and this will go use Power Virtual Agents on the back end to identify common issues that can be causing that problem, and it even integrates with the TrueGreen knowledge base.
What struck me on this one is this is something we could actually build out for our clients today.
Absolutely.
That's what was amazing about this example here.
Yeah. Particular problem, and on top of that, with all that additional information, I can even go start to schedule an appointment. And just by providing my email address, it will actually go to the TrueGreen backend, call their scheduling APIs, and find the next best time for me to have an appointment. And just like that, I'm able to go book a TrueGreen agent to come out to my home. Something that used to take a few hours, now could just take a couple minutes. But what's really special about it is how they built it. TrueGreen used Power Virtual Agent, the newest addition to the Power Platform, which makes it possible for everyone in the world to go create chatbots without having to write any code. And the way that Power Virtual Agents works is we can see on the right-hand side of the screen a visual designer that captures the entire chatbot experience as well as the AI that backs it. And on the left-hand side, something called tracing, which makes it easy for you to actually watch how your customer interacts with that chatbot. So if I go run through the same set of steps as I was doing before, we can see that on the right-hand side of the screen, the Power Virtual Agent chatbot will automatically start showing all the different steps as they run through. And if I zoom in here, we can see all the different user responses that I offered. And if I go back out, we can see that's exactly what the customer sees in their
real-time build and test.
And this
that's
just
awesome.
Continues to advance through using all kinds of great AI capabilities without requiring code or data science. And if I want to go schedule an appointment, that requires calling out to the TrueGreen backend system. And to do that, I use Power Automate. Power Automate has over 275 different connectors, which make it possible to connect to all your different business applications right out of the box. So when I provide my email address, that actually is going to that back-end system and looking up the next best time for me to have an appointment and to send a TruGreen agent out. And for this next part, when I confirm that I want to have this appointment, we can see that it's using Power Automate again. However, the system I want to interact with is a contact management system.
This is amazing.
With legacy and Win32 app, which doesn't have any APIs. The only way I can talk to it is through the UI. And that's where the brand new UI flows capability of Power Automate comes into play. It makes it possible for me to just record a series of steps on my desktop, which will then run in the background as part of my standard Power Automate workflows. And just to show how easy that is,
so
I
huge.
the TruGreen contact management application. I can go take an input from the virtual agent for the email for the user, paste that in there.
Now this is where demos almost go wrong.
After I do that,
clicking on the email multiple times. Poor guy.
That will actually make it so that I can go search that particular record in that contact management
He nailed it.
system.
It was great.
So I switch over to, say, the Activities tab, and then what I want to do is I want to capture all of the outputs from that chat experience, because that information will be useful for the TruGreen agent when they go out to the home. And that makes it possible so the customer has a complete end-to-end experience with TruGreen, all integrated and highly automated. And when I click Done, I can switch back to Power Automate, and we can see inside that same web-based Power Automate visual designer, all the steps I just recorded are visible. And if I expand each of these individual steps, we can see the search box, the text command, all of that information is captured in a completely automated way that allows me to very easily record this information in that contact management system.
Good, you can just see it right now. That's perfect.
I'm switching back to Power Virtual Agent. And once I confirm this appointment, it's actually going to go trigger that UI flow that I just built. And what this is going to do is it's going to capture all that information that I just was entering inside the chatbot and open up that Win32 application and simulate all the same keyboard inputs and mouse clicks that I just did. And this uses 3 different types of rules and AI to make sure that it's selecting exactly the right control in that UI automation, making it incredibly robust and durable. And this.
What? Did you guys hear that? It's like task recorder. So I've got the task recorder capability in finance and supply chain management. Now they have the task recorder for any application on your desktop.
Yeah, that's amazing to me.
This is this right here. I realize that we're, this is in. I think this is in preview, so take that with an asterisk right now. But, this is as Flow or Power Automate has been doing this whole time. With business logic and executing, that historical logic apps, automating these processes. It's reducing it. It's incrementally reducing the need for more complex middleware solutions. So in using Scribe or Kingsway Soft or SSIS or anything else, you can go right to Flow or right to Power Automate, and with these UI scripts, you can hit. If there's no, as Charles Lamont mentioned, if there's no API available, if you don't want to throw in, an actual custom solution with that API, this can fill that gap or fill that void. If you have a lower budget, you don't want to go into Scribe licensing to host on on a server or online or what have you, or Kingsway if it's a true integration. I mean, this is huge. This is going to be, I think, the most impactful for those smaller organizations or those organizations where the budget is a little tighter to be able to go execute in front office, back office applications and work streams using the native capabilities of Power Automate, which is I was like cheering and fist pumping in the background here because I'm geeking out on it. It's so cool. It's so cool.
Yeah, I mean the features that are being added for this. I mean, obviously the point is move away from having a developer write code to do the process, right? Move it to where an end user can do it. And the biggest complaint people have, even within Dynamics, is the cost. I mean, they look at it and they're like, I don't understand why that costs so much. And they just don't understand the project management, the analysis, how different teams interact with it, that, they want the one-man shop, basically, that can do everything. But that, even in their organization, that doesn't exist. It's a combination of teams that work together to build solutions. And if you think about it, this just takes away one of those cost perspectives, right? Like a development perspective. And I don't know if developers are all thrilled to automate an existing API integration, right? I mean, some of them are, some of them like that. But more about, you know, what we want to do is we want to tackle new functionality. We want to put our minds to, you know, using machine learning that's not automated through Power Platform. We love to use it because it's a great tool, but at the same point, we may want to build out algorithms that work with weather data. So we're trying to move forward even further than that to be able to experiment with that to give a strategic advantage from a technology perspective, and then have that eventually come into the more common type of area as we go through it. So yeah, I mean, that was just pretty huge. And I know we're getting close on time here, guys. We were a little bit late. So I want to just show the Dynamics 365 section here just really quickly, because I think some of the points he has are pretty interesting.
Competitiveness of every business going forward is going to be how well do you harness the power of all the data that is there in your enterprise to drive the transformational outcomes for your company. It's not about sort of other people using your data. It is about how good are you at driving your business process using the data that you have. That's core to what we are trying to do with Dynamics 365. In fact, today, when you think about the amount of data there is, one of the sad facts is 73% of the data is not analyzed. That means you're not able to drive that next level of automation, creation of that next level of predictive power or analytical power, because that's going to define competitive advantage. And our goal with Dynamics 365 is to build out that world's connected business cloud so that you can harness all of your data to drive the productivity of your business process. That means you want to create these digital feedback loops across all the key elements: people, operations, products, customers.
Hey Sabrina,
all of that
if
has
you're
to
still
come
on,
together.
does
In
this
fact,
look
an
familiar?
AI-first company is a company that knows how to take data from one system and change the outcome of another system. And that's what we endeavor to do with Dynamics 365. In fact, a great example of this is the customer data platform and customer insights. This is all new innovation in Dynamics, and it typifies this change in paradigm from being reactive to data to being proactive with data. How do you take all of the data that you have in the enterprise and bringing it together from all sources? In fact, we've built the data platform, in this case, customer data platform and customer insights, on top of Azure Synapse. So it builds on all that rich platform capability. That means all of your enterprise data can be brought in. And then on top of that, you can operationalize AI at scale. So you can build these customer segments to drive the next level of experience. But those customer segments are not being created by just using data in a CRM system. It's using all of your data. So if you want to target someone for sustainability efforts, you want to be able to take your supply chain data and bring it in to your segment creation. Of course, it has to be extensible, and all of the Power Platform capabilities come together. And you also want to bridge. One of the things that we are very excited about is how business processes are changing by bridging what is physical and what is virtual. And AEP Energy is, in fact, using customer insights to just do that. And it's a great use case of how all of the data can be brought to bear in changing the customer experience. And to show you that, let me throw it out.
Yeah, and so I'm not going to show because we're at time pretty much for this, but I'm going to switch it over to chat. Quite honestly, when it comes to Dynamics 365, I think the key point that's being communicated here is that we now have multiple systems that we can use to address business process issues. So the example would be, we've got Power Platform to create endpoint applications that can do just one specific action, or can do multiple actions. We've got Power Automate to take your old systems, legacy systems, and then integrate with them within an actual process flow. We've got Dynamics 365 CE integrated with the Common Data Service, which integrates as well with finance and supply chain management. I mean, all of these points now are just something that are just natively integrated within the Microsoft solution. I think it's just a really powerful example of where things are going in the future here.
Yeah, and one thing I'll throw into the mix there is, that space that you just outlined is where we're bringing prospects and customers into the fold. It is new-ish. It's been around, the Power Platform and Power Apps and the capabilities there, and some of the amazing things you can do with those technologies and capabilities have been there for a little while. They keep getting better and better, and there's much more R&D being thrown into Power Apps these days than there ever has been. But if for those watching, for those that may have seen this in the past, the next segment, this customer spotlight, really gets into AI and Internet of Things and field service and everything. And what the way I think about it is, along with all of the Azure capabilities we talked about, Scott mentioned, this intelligent edge, so edge connectivity with hardware and infrastructure that's mobile and accessible and global and scaled. You may have heard the term XRM in the past. Anything relationship management. This is really kind of like edge RM. When we're talking about field service and we're talking about Internet of Things and the feedback and the data that we're getting back from our devices that are crucial and critical to our business and how we operate and the products and the customer success. This is that edge RM. So we're getting into really interesting spaces, and I'm excited to be along for the ride.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the big thing here, like he showed, was this graphic. I mean, I actually talked to our internal team about this just recently. Engaging customers, empowering people, transforming products, and then optimizing operations. That's what we look at within Dynamics now. And the beautiful thing about all of this is that it's not just in Dynamics. It's everywhere. We can use all the tools to really make that successful. And that's, like I said, it's a game changer. I was even on a call today, like I said, that people were talking about just BC and service management. I was like, well, guys, shouldn't we be teaching people that they've got more now, that they can integrate with field service and use field service capabilities, because it has mapping, it's got route optimization, and we don't have that inside of Business Central, for example. I think that those conversations are shifting now, and that's, like I said, that's like you said, Adam, it's super exciting and a lot of fun just to be a part of this transition. So, all right, guys, well, we are at the end. I wanted to thank all of you that were able to join. I know we had some people that were on and had to jump off as well. So we will be streaming again 2 weeks from today, same time and same place, and hopefully it will be all three of us. Content-wise, we will be posting that update, so make sure to watch LinkedIn. If you are a subscriber or follower, I should say, on Twitch, it'll notify you as well. I want to thank everyone in chat for having some fun with us, and we look forward to talking to you guys in 2 weeks. So have a good one. Power Ranger time.